Okay, so we previously looked at the report of Michael Robbins, the intimacy slash workplace investigations expert that Blake Lively has retained. Wayfarer have retained and Fromholz to rebut Michael Robbins' testimony. So we're now going to look through her report, see what she has to say, because I want to gauge her thoughts on the points that Robbins makes, and she will probably opine as well to instances where Lively made Baldoni uncomfortable. So let's see. Okay, yeah. So rebuttal report of expert witness and Fromholz. I'm not going to go through all of her credentials. Because we've covered that already. It's safe to say that she is very knowledgeable and more than adequately experienced. But we went through her credentials in the Daubert motions, so I'm not going to do that. I just want to get to what she actually says about the events of what happened and Robin's report. Okay, so assignment. I've been retained by defendant Wayfarer Studios, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Saritz, Ainsworth's Movie, Melissa Nathan, Tag, and Jen Abel, principally to review and respond to the expert witness report prepared by Michael Robbins, informed by my knowledge, experience, and training in the area of workplace investigations. So I'll put a link to my video going through Michael Robbins' report. It was absolutely hilarious. I've never been so outraged. The guy destroyed his notes, which is just, I find that insane, given that, especially as he's an attorney, you should know better. But yeah, I'll put the link to the read through I did of his report. Okay, summary of opinions. My first opinion is that Robbins erred in his conclusion that Wayfarer failed in its obligation, make that bigger, to conduct an investigation into concerns that Lively raised during the filming of It Ends With Us. Because Wayfarer, Baldoni, Heath, and other defendants took immediate action to correct and prevent conduct about which Lively complained, and therefore an investigation would have been superfluous. All the alleged inappropriate acts took place solely during the first phase of production, from May to June of 2023. During the production stoppage from June 15, 2023 through November 8, 2023, occasioned by guild strikes, Lively continued to communicate with Baldoni and did not make any complaints. Yes, that's important. On November 9th, 2023, the day the strikes ended and the studio was arranging to resume production, Lively, through counsel, sent Wayfarer a list of 17 demands to make the workplace safe for everyone in her view, and demanded that Wayfarer, Baldoni, Heath, and others agree to the demands before she would return to production. I love that someone else is calling it a 17-point list of demands. The cover email attaching the demands stated Lively was willing to forego a more formal HR process as long as the set is safe moving forward. The studio agreed to Lively's 17 demands. Lively convened an all-hands meeting at her home in New York City on January 4th, 2024, the day before production was set to resume, to air her grievances with Wayfarer, Baldoni, Heath, a representative from Sony, and others. None of the allegations of misconduct in the complaint took place during the second phase or production. Again, these corrective actions rendered an investigation superfluous. My second opinion is that Robbins erred in his conclusion that Wayfarer failed in its obligation to conduct an investigation because an investigation would have shown that a preponderance of the evidence did not support Lively's allegations. My third opinion is that Robbins erred in his conclusion that Wayfarer violated entertainment industry specific intimacy protocols by failing to require an intimacy coordinator to be present on set during phase one, failing to have a signed nudity rider in place in phase one, and allegedly failing to have a closed set during the birthing scene. My fourth opinion is that Robbins erred in his conclusion that the entertainment industry is unique in that post-employment actions that affect a person's reputation can harm their future job prospects. A list of the documents I considered in reaching my opinions is attached here to as Exhibit C. Okay, we'll go through that at the end, I think. Yeah, I'll do it at the end. Factual background relevant to my opinions. The following is a summary of the relevant evidence I have reviewed. Blake Lively and Jenny Slate complained about 3 comments by Justin Baldoni to women, to which they took offence. The comments did not recur. Lively alleged that Baldoni commented, "I like your outfit." Oh my god. I mean, even when you just read that, it's just so ridiculous. This is what apparently traumatized her. Lively alleged that Baldoni commented, "I like your outfit" in May 2023 during rehearsal when, as she was wearing a low-cut dress with a jacket over it, she bent over and the jacket opened. I'm amazed she's not suing the jacket for sexual harassment. She's suing everyone else. Lively testified that Baldoni said that scenes and characters' wardrobes needed to be sexy or hot. She said that. Lively said that. Lively testified that these statements did not make her uncomfortable. Lively alleged that during filming of the bar scene, on or about May 23rd, 2023, she was wearing a jacket over a onesie, a loose one-piece pajama made of fleece. She alleged that the jacket had been approved as wardrobe and that Baldoni, the film's director, said he wanted to see the onesie, also approved wardrobe, which Baldoni, Slate, and Hassan Minhaj were also wearing, without the coat over it. Lively alleged that when she removed the coat and was wearing the onesie, Baldoni said that she looked sexy. And when she told him that that's not what she was going for, that she looked hot. Lively testified that she made clear to Baldoni at the time that the above incident happened that his comment crossed the line. Lively further testified that Baldoni acknowledged that he made a mistake. Lively testified while discussing a sex scene in the draft script and her objection that it seemed pornographic to her. Baldoni told her that he was once addicted to pornography and thus understood it well. Lively alleged that on one occasion, Baldoni told her and her assistant that he was sexually abused in a previous relationship. Lively said, At the end of the story, Mr. Baldoni shared that it had caused him to re-examine his past. He then said, "Did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No." Mr. Baldoni claimed this was an example of how we all have things from which we can learn and grow. Slate alleged that on or about May 18th, 2023, when she was wearing leather pants that were part of wardrobe for a scene, Baldoni told her she looked sexy. Slate testified that she responded that it's a good look. Slate testified after Baldoni told Lively that she looked sexy. Slate told him that commenting on actors' bodies and their wardrobes is irrelevant or unnecessary or inappropriate or distancing, and we're just not doing this anymore. Why would the director not commenting on a character's wardrobe be inappropriate or irrelevant or unnecessary or distract? What? I don't understand this. It's like they forget he was the fucking director. Baldoni told Slate that he heard her concerns and that adjustments would be made. Slate responded, "Well received." Slate understood this to mean that adjustments would be made and said that it was enough for her to focus and do her work. The above three comments were the only allegedly inappropriate comments Baldoni made during the production of the film, and they were all made during phase 1 of production. Although she did not testify about this, Lively's complaint filed with the CRD alleges that Baldoni acted inappropriately because he did not involve an intimacy coordinator in scenes that involved kissing, and that he improvised during scenes that involved kissing. Experienced and trained intimacy coordinator Talbot testified that the participation of an intimacy coordinator is not necessary for kissing scenes. Lively also alleged that Baldoni acted inappropriately during the filming of a slow dance scene. She alleged that he dragged his lips down her neck and said, "It smells so good." She also alleged that during the slow dance scene, Baldoni spoke to her out of character and that this was inappropriate. She alleged that he was caressing her with his mouth. A video of the entire filming of the slow dance scene with the sound enhanced and with captions is available on YouTube. This video shows several things that contradict Lively's allegations. First, it shows that Baldoni did not drag his lips down Lively's neck. Second, it shows that Baldoni's reference to how she smelled was in response to Lively apologizing for getting scented spray tan or body makeup on him. Third, it showed that Lively talked as much or more than Baldoni did during the filming of the scene, that speaking out of character, she suggested the scene should reflect how she and her husband interact by talking, and that she encouraged the kissing and near kissing, saying that they needed to give the audience what they wanted. Right. Exactly. In addition, Lively initiated unchoreographed kissing on multiple occasions. Yes, finally someone saying this. She did so during the scene where Baldoni's character proposed to her character in the hospital room. She also initiated 8 unscripted kisses during a scene in the hallway hospital. She initiated 1 kiss in the scene, and there were 8 takes. She added these kisses without discussion or express permission. Lively alleged that Jamie Heath twice engaged in conduct that she believed was inappropriate. Lively alleged that in May 2023, Heath entered the hair and makeup trailer where she was getting her body makeup removed. She alleged that she told him to turn and face the wall because she had no clothing on her upper body. She alleged that at some point while they were talking, Heath turned away from the wall and toward her. Lively's hairdresser Anne Carroll held up a cutting cape so that Heath could not see Lively's naked upper body. Lively was feeding her baby with one breast, and Lively's makeup artist Vivian Baker put a towel over Lively's other breast, so Heath could not see it. Heath recalled that on May 16, 2023, he, Baldoni, Sachs, and Giannetti approached Lively's makeup trailer to have a meeting that Lively had requested to be held in her trailer. Heath recalled hearing someone say, "Come in," or something similar. He recalled entering the trailer and seeing that Lively appeared to be breastfeeding. He asked if he should come back later. He testified that Lively told him to look away, which he did. Heath described a 2 to 3 minute conversation in which they discussed when to have a meeting. Lively alleged that on May 23, 2023, Heath showed her a moving image of a naked woman, and that as soon as she saw the naked woman, she asked him to stop. Lively testified that Heath told her it was a video of his wife giving birth. Heath testified that he had one video of the day of the child's birth on his phone. That video does not depict the actual birth, but instead depicts the baby, covered by a cloth, lying on the mother's chest. The video is quite dark, Heath is seated behind his wife. His wife's bare shoulders are visible, but no nudity is visible in the first 20 or more seconds of the video. Lively contracted COVID and was away from production from May 26, 2023 to May 31st, 2023. On June 1st, 2023, there was a meeting in Lively's trailer in which some of the above incidents involving Baldoni and Heath were discussed. Lively, Heath and Alex Sachs, one of the film's producers, were in attendance. Giannetti testified that during the June 1st meeting in Lively's trailer, Heath apologised and Lively made clear that her privacy was important and that Heath should not enter her trailer. Then maybe she shouldn't call meetings in her trailer. Like, I find this wild because she wants to have these meetings and professional discussions in her trailer, which is not a problem for a film set, but she also does it in her home as well. And I feel like professional boundaries don't, in her opinion, don't apply to her. Okay. Giannetti believed that the situation had been addressed by the June 1st meeting. In her complaint and in her deposition, Lively did not identify additional conduct by Heath after the June 1st, 2023 meeting that she found inappropriate. The additional explicit scenes were not included after Lively opposed them. Lively alleged that Baldoni added additional scenes with gratuitous sexual elements to scenes after she agreed to take on the role. In fairness, that was at Sony's request. Lively told Baldoni that she opposed the addition of the sexual elements and conceded that the scenes were modified as a result of her concerns. And again, much like the lift scene, as soon as she objected, they took it out. So that kind of really pisses me off because in her CRD and her complaint, she said that, gratuitous sexual scenes were added. She didn't say that they were removed as soon as she objected to them, which is what she's, here it says, and conceded the scenes were removed as a result of her concerns, or modified as a result of her concerns. So Lively has somewhere testified or confirmed that, these gratuitous scenes actually were never in place. But she omitted that piece of information in her CRD complaint when she was saying that Baldoni was adding gratuitous sex scenes. She didn't say that he removed them. It's a little bit deceptive then. Right, okay. There was no nudity or simulated sex during phase 1 of production. SAG-AFTRA guidelines suggest that intimacy coordinators be hired in scenes involving nudity or simulated sex, or upon request in other intimate or hyper-exposed scenes. SAG-AFTRA guidelines suggest a closed set when filming scenes involving nudity or simulated sex. Elizabeth Talbot was hired to be the intimacy coordinator for the film and served as the intimacy coordinator for Phase 1. Talbot was hired in April of 2023, well in advance of the start of production. Lively was asked if she wanted to speak with Talbot about the nudity scenes as they were being written during pre-production, but said it was not necessary. There were no scenes involving nudity or simulated sex during Phase 1 of the production. Talbot reviewed the script and identified scenes that might require a nudity rider. Talbot requested Baldoni describe what would be in those scenes to propose to Lively, which he did. Talbot met with Lively to review Baldoni's proposal regarding nudity and intimate scenes for purposes of memorializing them in the nudity rider. In early May 2023, Talbot had a phone call with Lively and her lawyer, Lindsay Strasberg, regarding the language of the nudity rider. Lively's team continued to negotiate the nudity rider during Phase 1. Lively, therefore, was aware of the terms of the nudity rider. In June of 2023, Wayfarer's attorney sent Lively's attorney the final SAG-approved nudity rider that Lively had negotiated. Lively and her team delayed signing the nudity rider. Despite multiple requests and ongoing requests by Wayfarer's lawyers, Lively did not sign it. There's a bit of a pattern here, is there? I wonder if Richard Marx would do a declaration to say, "Oh no, this is normal. This is standard. This is an unspoken rule that we have in Hollywood." A nudity rider is not required for birthing scenes if there is no nudity. SAG defines nudity as anything that can be seen under a bikini. There is no such thing as implied nudity or partial nudity with respect to SAG guidelines, and no nudity rider is required in such circumstances. The scene of Lily Bloom giving birth did not involve nudity. Lively was wearing a heavy prosthetic belly, hospital gown, and black shorts or black underwear, which can be seen in the behind-the-scenes video of the scene. Yes, and she originally said that she only got to wear a thin piece of fabric. When she started, if you go back to her, I think pretty much all her complaints actually. So her CRD, her initial complaint, her first amended complaint, and her second amended complaint all refer to that piece of fabric as being nude coloured, right, to match her skin tone. In her Rule 56.1 statement, that is the moment where Lively, because Wayfarer had released the behind-the-scenes video, Lively at that point changed the colour of the fabric to black, which, if the fabric is supposed to be, to protect your modesty while you are simulating nudity, it makes no fucking sense for a Caucasian woman to be wearing a black piece of fabric. And when I say black, I mean literally black, like dress color black, it makes no sense. Okay, opinions. Robin incorrectly concludes that Wayfarer failed in its obligations regarding Lively's complaints. Wayfarer lived up to its obligations of preventing and correcting unwanted behaviour. The purpose of an investigation here is to find facts. Here, Wayfarer did not dispute the facts that were alleged and instead took action to ensure that any of the alleged unwanted conduct and comments did not recur. Even if Wayfarer had conducted an investigation, the corrective action would not have changed. Wayfarer lived up to its legal obligation because it ensured that the unwanted conduct did not occur. Exactly. As much as Michael Robbins and Lively are crowing about, well, you failed to do an investigation, what further action were they hoping for? She got everything she wanted. So what more were they expecting an investigation to yield, I guess, is the question that's at the top of my mind. Right. Ultimately, an employer is required to prevent and correct unlawful behaviour. Specifically, the CRD guide, again, another guide, states that to meet this obligation, an employer should address misconduct even if it does not rise to the level of a policy or legal violation. Stopping unwanted behaviour, even when it is not yet serious enough to violate the law, prevents it from progressing further. Wayfarer took steps to prevent the complained of conduct from recurring at the time it received the complaints. Wayfarer again took action to prevent the complained of conduct from recurring when, in November 2023, it agreed to the 17-point rider that Lively demanded. On November 9th, 2023, while filming remained stayed due to strikes, was Filming remained stayed? I didn't think it was due to strikes. I thought it was because Lively was not coming back. The strikes are over on the 9th of November. I'm sure they were. I'd have to check, but in my memory tells me that actually filming was resumed because Deadpool and Wolverine announced that they were resuming filming in London on November 9th, which is conveniently the same time Lively sent this 17-point list of demand, which I'm pretty sure was a, hold up It Ends With Us, so she could stay with Ryan Reynolds in London. Because she was ready to return to work then when Deadpool and Wolverine finished filming. Anyway, on November 9th, 2023, while filming remained stayed due to the strikes, Wayfarer received an email from Lively's counsel, like Lindsay Strasberg, stating Lively was willing to forego a more formal HR process in favour of everyone returning to work and finishing the film as long as the set is safe moving forward. With the November 9th, 2023 email, Lively's counsel presented a list of 17 protections for return to production, allegedly intended to remedy the misconduct that Miss Lively and others had reported earlier that year. The protections did not identify any act of alleged discrimination or harassment, but rather included certain conditions, including the hiring of a new producer, the presence of a Sony representative on set, an all-hands meeting before the resumption of filming, and a prohibition against broadly defined harassment and retaliation. And I think one thing I do question, right, because even more in my mind, I do think that this return to protections for return to production email was purely designed to buy her time before having to return to the set of It Ends With Us. Because Lively had been, the strikes had gone on for 3 months. Lively was in constant contact with Wayfarer, specifically with Baldoni, because she was requesting the dailies, for example, amongst other things. If this was not intended to delay It Ends With Us until Deadpool and Wolverine had finished filming, then why did she not send it much earlier, like back in June, in preparation for, because you never know when the strikes are going to come to an end. It could have, it could have come to an end literally a week later. So you could have had all of these things in place. But I think it was deliberately timed because Deadpool and Wolverine went back to filming. And I think that was always the case because as soon as the strikes were lifted, she was always going to prioritize Deadpool and Wolverine and being with her husband. Just thinking outside, like in my mind, thinking out loud. Lively and her counsel threatened Wayfarer and Sony that Lively would not return to complete the film unless It Ends With Us movie accepted the protections. Wayfarer and Sony did accept the protections and production resumed on January 5th, 2024. Phase 2 of production proceeded without unwanted conduct. Therefore, an investigation would have been superfluous. Even if Wayfarer had investigated Lively's complaints, the preponderance of the evidence standard would have led to a finding that most of the alleged conduct did not occur, at least in the form that Lively alleged. Which is, to some degree, what Lyman said in the order on the motion for summary judgment. The standard that an investigator must apply when finding facts is whether a preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that the alleged conduct occurred or did not occur. Lively complained that Baldoni commented that she looked sexy and hot in a onesie, which was part of the wardrobe. Baldoni was the director of the film, and Lively conceded that he said on other occasions that scenes and characters' wardrobes needed to be sexy or hot. Lively did not find these comments to be inappropriate. Lively conceded that she used the word sexy regarding characters or scenes in the film. Yes! Baldoni wanted to make a movie that was sexy, which Lively knew well. Prior to accepting the role, Lively read the script and knew that the story focused on domestic violence and the film would include sexual content. When Lively signed on to the film, the intent was to make an R-rated film, per the agreement with Sony. Prior to the commencement of filming, an actor's loan-out agreement for Lively's acting services was negotiated. The loan-out agreement includes an acknowledgement by Lively that the film would include sexual content, including simulated sexual activity, and might be R-rated based on strong sexual or violent content. Lively signed on to an R-rated film, then required scenes be taken out to make it PG-13. Lively could not have it both ways. No, but she'll give it a good go. She cannot say that the comments were appropriate when addressed to or about others, but not appropriate when addressed to or about her. She knew that the movie was a sexy one and was intended to be R-rated. It defies credulity that she would find a comment about her wardrobe to be inappropriate. For this reason, a preponderance of the evidence would not sustain this allegation. Similarly, Slate complained that Baldoni commented that she looked sexy in part of her wardrobe. As in the instance with Lively, Baldoni was the director and was talking about a character in wardrobe. For the same reasons that apply to Lively's allegation, a preponderance of the evidence would not sustain Slate's allegation. Lively's allegation that Baldoni acted inappropriately during the filming of the slow dance scene is contradicted by the video of the scene. Yes, which includes the entirety of the filming of the scene. The video shows that Lively's allegations are, in fact, unsupported, and that she engaged in the same or similar conduct that she alleges Baldoni did. In addition, Lively's allegation that she was not comfortable with Baldoni kissing her is undercut by the fact that Lively, on multiple occasions, initiated unscripted kisses of Baldoni. For these reasons, her allegation that Baldoni acted inappropriately during the filming of the slow dance scene would not be sustained by a preponderance of the evidence. I love this. This woman is saying everything that we all want to say. She is saying what we are all screaming. Lively's allegation that Heath saw her naked breasts. Sorry. Lively's allegation that Heath saw her naked breasts when he entered her trailer to speak to her was contradicted by the recollections of her hairdresser, Carol, who recalled holding a cutting cape up so Heath could not see Lively, and of Baker, who recalled putting a towel over the breast that was not breastfeeding. Heath's own recollection of the interaction also contradicted Lively's account. Heath recalled that he looked away from Lively as she requested he do, and that he did not look at her during the brief 2 to 3 minute meeting. Oh, so everyone that was in the trailer is contradicting Lively's account. Lively's allegation that Heath showed her a video of his wife giving birth is contradicted not only by Heath's testimony, but also, and perhaps more importantly, by the video itself. The only video that Heath had on his phone is the one that depicts his wife and him in a tub with their bare shoulders visible and with the newborn baby on his wife's chest covered in a small towel. Lively said that she told him to stop the video almost immediately and there is no nudity in the first part of the video, which is the only part she might have seen. Robbins incorrectly concludes that there were nudity rider and intimacy coordinator failures. Yes, let's get to this one. Robbins opines that Wayfarer should have established close-set protocols before the birthing scene. He explains that he believes the scene involved simulated nudity. First, Tolbert, a trained intimacy coordinator, testified that the birthing scene did not involve nudity. Second, the SAG-AFTRA intimacy guidelines apply to nudity and simulated sex. There is no mention of the concept of simulated nudity. Brilliant. Robbins also opines that Wayfarer somehow failed to involve the intimacy coordinator or secure a nudity rider because Baldoni would improvise by adding additional sexual contact to some of the scenes after Miss Lively signed on to the movie. Robbins ignores Lively's own testimony that when she objected to the proposed sexual content, Baldoni modified the scenes and did not include it. Therefore, there can be no failure to involve an intimacy coordinator because the scenes never happened. That's a great point. Additionally, when asked whether an intimacy coordinator met with her to cover some of those scenes and asked whether she was comfortable with them or not, Lively testified that that would not be standard at that point in production, in my experience in over 20 years. Although she had in fact met with the intimacy coordinator prior to production, expressed her boundaries, and negotiated her nudity rider. Lively also admitted she had never worked with an intimacy coordinator before this film. Oh, really? I find that actually fascinating. Because it's like some of the films, like The Town, which she was in with Ben Affleck, had sex scenes. So she's never used an intimacy coordinator. Interesting. I think I'm going to have to go to this a minute. But just keeping in mind the allegations against Jamie Heath, right? There is actually, and this is a news article about why Blake Lively avoids nudity in film. And she says it herself. When I see nudity in movies, I'm always distracted by it, she explained in an interview years ago. If someone has their boobs out, then that's all I'm looking at. I can't help it. So it's okay for her to look at boobs, and it's okay for Ryan Reynolds to look at a breastfeeding mother in a hotel lobby, as he's previously admitted to. But if Jamie Heath, turns around because she's invited him into her trailer while she's topless and breastfeeding, then, somehow there's a different standard to be applied here, and it's actionable conduct. Robbins also opines that Wayfarer somehow failed because it did not establish clear definitions of intimacy. However, the SAG-AFTRA guidelines are clear that intimacy involves nudity and simulated sex. In addition, intimacy coordinators, including Talbot, are trained and certified and thus know the definitions of intimacy. It is not up to a studio to create such a definition. Yes. Exactly. And, Lively has 20 years experience in this industry. Not just her, she comes from an entire Hollywood family. So she doesn't need these explanations. She's just pointing and saying, well, Wayfarer failed. But, you see comments like, artist of her caliber, etc., etc. Where she's commanding certain things because she's a quote unquote A-list actress, but yet, she apparently was oblivious to standard definitions of nudity, simulated sex, etc., etc., and what SAG-AFTRA, guidelines say is necessary or recommended. Robbins opines that Wayfarer failed because the birthing scene was not a closed set. Once again, the birthing scene did not involve nudity. Therefore, no closed set was required. Nonetheless, at Lively's request, the set was closed. Robbins opines that Wayfarer failed because it did not offer Lively an intimacy coordinator for the birthing scene, even though it did not involve nudity. This opinion disregards SAG's guidelines for the use of intimacy coordinators, as well as Talbot's testimony that she discussed the scenes with Lively and Lively did not request an intimacy coordinator for the birth scene. And I know that Michael Robbins kind of said, well, it's not, the burden isn't on Lively to request an intimacy coordinator or to request a nudity rider. It's, for the studio should be putting these things in place and making sure that there's an intimacy coordinator present. I disagree with that entirely, for the reason that SAG-AFTRA guidelines on this specifically are, they state these things are not mandatory, but if the actor or actress requests it, then, it would be appropriate to put these things in place. So actually, by SAG-AFTRA's own definitions and guidelines, a studio would supply these things at the request of, in this case, Blake Lively. So yes, there is a burden on Lively to make the request. And if she didn't, then Wayfarer are still not breaching any rules anywhere. But given that they actually didn't have to do anything for these scenes, they went above and beyond. And that is how I think this expert is going to testify to all of this. Okay. Robbins misapprehends. Hold on. Yeah, Robbins misapprehends the role of an intimacy coordinator and the guidelines that apply to the use of intimacy coordinators. He also ignores or misunderstands the testimony of Talbot, the intimacy coordinator who worked on phase 1 of the production. His opinions, which are based on his misunderstanding of the facts, are incorrect. Robbins incorrectly concludes that reputational damage is unique to the entertainment industry. In part of his opinion that Wayfarer failed in its obligations regarding Lively's complaints, Robbins concludes that reputational damage is particularly problematic in the entertainment industry because powerful people can damage the reputation of people who depend on their reputation for future work opportunities. Yeah, exactly. And that can run two ways. Lively could do that. Lively can damage the reputation of people who, other people in the entertainment industry. Because she is, what was the word here? Powerful. So is her husband. So is her best friend. So is her husband's best friend. So is her ex. So they're pickleball friends. Robbins ignores the numerous other industries in which people develop work opportunities based on reputation, including his own. Lawyers, including expert witnesses and investigators, develop future work opportunities based solely on reputation. Exactly. So do innumerable other professionals, including doctors, architects, contractors, plumbers. Oh, one sec. Electricians, therapists, consultants, and more. There simply is no support for the conclusion that actors are harmed more by reputational damage than other professionals. Sorry about that, guys. Love it when people decide to call the house phone while I'm in the middle of doing this. Conclusion. For the above reasons, my opinions are that 1. Robbins erred in his conclusion that Wayfarer failed in its obligation to conduct an investigation into concerns that Lively raised during the filming of the film, because Wayfarer, Baldoni, Heath, and other defendants took immediate action to correct and prevent conduct about which Lively complained, and therefore an investigation would have been superfluous. 2. Robbins erred in his conclusion that Wayfarer failed in its obligation to conduct an investigation, because an investigation would have shown that a preponderance of the evidence did not support Lively's allegations. 3. Robbins erred in his conclusion that Wayfarer violated entertainment industry-specific intimacy protocols. And 4. Robbins erred in his conclusion that the entertainment industry is unique in that post-employment actions that affect a person's reputation can harm their future job prospects. All right, and because I said I would, we'll have a quick look through the exhibit where she lists the materials that she relied upon. All documents, deposition transcripts, and related exhibits and pleadings and filings listed in Exhibit C to Mr. Robbins' report. So it's everything that Robbins used. which didn't include the PGA letter. Deposition transcripts and exhibits. So, in addition, she also used the deposition of Anne Carroll, the hairdresser, of Warren Zavala, WME, Justin Greystone, Lively's manager, and Danny Greenberg, who was Justin Baldoni's WME agent. I don't know what all these are, so there's obviously exhibits from Blake Lively, but without going into them all, which I'm not going to do right now, I don't know what they all are. Obviously exhibits from Baldoni, Wayfarer, there's something from Sony, and something from Ryan Reynolds and Heath. Pleadings and filings, the CRD complaint, and then a YouTube video, which is the slow dance scene, and SAG-AFTRA standards and protocols for the use of intimacy coordinators. So there we go. I thought the report was really good, actually. It kind of just boiled down everything. It did point out problems with Michael Robbins' report, where he's clearly misunderstood or interpreted incorrectly, shall we say, the SAG-AFTRA guidelines and the CRD guidelines. But I'm glad that, we're finally seeing a report which points out, actually, well, Lively's complaining of unscripted kissing, but, here, she did it 9 times herself. The only thing I would have liked to have seen in this, and I know it can't, but this is just my wish list, so I know it couldn't happen, because you can't just, introduce, evidence outside of, the facts of this case. But, I would have loved to have seen, reference to Lively admitting that she grabbed Henry Gold's crotch, unscripted, without any consent or advance warning, in a simple favor. Or, in the same film, smacked Anna Kendrick's butt without any... It wasn't scripted, she wasn't forewarned, no consent was sought, etc., etc. But that's kind of what us content creators are here for, We'll show all of this stuff and say, "Oh, well, hold on a minute," like I did with that news article, Lively's got an issue with someone staring at a woman's naked breasts. Oh, hold on, let me just go and get an article where Lively admits she stares at naked breasts. So, but I did like this report. I thought it was much more measured and balanced, and less chaotic than Michael Robbins. So, if Michael Robbins' testimony gets to stay and Lyman denies the Daubert motion to exclude him, then I would hope that he would also allow Anne Fromholz to rebut him. Okay. Hope you enjoyed that.